Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Cabinet meeting. Just before we begin, I'm sure many of you have already been in contact with the leader, but formally I would just like to extend the condolences of his Cabinet colleagues on the recent death of his father. And I'm sure that we will all be thinking of him and his family at this very difficult time. Apologies from absence. I think, with the exception of Peter, all members of Cabinet are here. I have received from Jo Watkins her apologies as leader of the Lib Dem group, and that means that everybody else is here. Yep.
Yeah, Councillor Patroni is on his way.
No, he is around, he's in the building.
Yes, I heard that he was. Yeah, fine. So, Councillor Patroni. In the meantime, perhaps we can go around and introduce ourselves as Cabinet members and other members around the table. So, yep.
Paul Jordan, Cabinet Member of Governance.
Brian Jones, Cabinet Member for County Operations.
Bill Murphy, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Myself, Bob Greenland, Deputy Leader with responsibility for Enterprise.
Richard John, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People.
Sarah Jones, Cabinet Member for Social Justice and Community Development. Penny Jones, Cabinet Member for Social Services, Safeguarding and Health.
And we're also joined at the table by Paul Matthews, our Chief Executive, and Rob Tranter, our Monitoring Officer. Other officers are in the room, and if you will introduce yourselves as and when you will. And we've got also Councillor Debbie Blake.
Oh, you want me to say?
Yeah.
Councillor Blake, the leader of the independent group.
And I understand Councillor Patroni will be coming in shortly. And also we have Councillor Val Smith, who is observing and keeping us under control. Right. Any declarations of interest?
Declaration of interest. Agenda item number 1. I'll be leaving the room.
Item number 1. Okay. If there are any other declarations as we move forward, then perhaps you could give them at the time and fill out the appropriate form. Right. The reports that we've got in front of us, which are agenda item 3, are first of all the Knoll Abergavenny. This is the section 106 funding distribution within that area. Councillor Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Leader. And the purpose, as you can see, is to seek member approval to utilise that section 106 offside balances and to create a capital budget of £26,082 within 2018-19 in respect of that development at the Knoll Abergavenny. And the grants be allocated to the following projects. Friends of Bailey Park, we will get 3,300. Friends of Linda Visca Gardens, 1,590. Abergavenny Community Trust, 2,140. Synergy Choir, 3,003. Off-road cycling and feasibility study, 5,000. And the balance of 10,752 to the Castle Meadows and Linda Vista improvements. There's a lot of detail in this report with regards to the criteria that apply to each case. So rather than flow through it, Deputy Leader, I'll see if there's any questions. In the meantime, Mike Moran is here, who I'm sure will be able to fill us in on any aspect as people are concerned about.
Mike, do you want to add anything at this moment or not?
I don't think so.
Okay. Any comments from Cabinet members? Debbie or no? No. Right. Okay. Nothing there. So, are you happy to move to the recommendation? Did you read out the amounts?
Yes,
you did. Right. Well, having had the recommendations read out, are you happy to accept the report, everyone? Yeah.
Just going to get Councillor Jordan.
Yeah, let him back in.
he hasn't been able to without
The second report we have today is to declare surplus to requirements and seek consent for the disposal of approximately 36 acres of agricultural land. And Phil Murphy, it's you again.
Yes, thank you. And the recommendation here is that the asset known as Trelec 238, encompassing 36 acres of land thereabouts between Llanish and Trelec, be declared surplus following the land being handed back to the council earlier this year. We're looking for consent for the land to be disposed of at the open market. There is no development potential with this land. So the recommendation is that the consent is given for the estates manager in consideration with myself to agree the method of disposal and any other related matters. The budgets set out within the report are made available to fund the necessary costs of the disposal of the land. This one is quite straightforward, Deputy Leader, and is in line with our policy of disposing of surplus holdings to use the receipts to support the 21st Century Schools programme.
Right.
There's no mention in the report of any uplift clause or the terms of any uplift clause.
We will be having an overage clause. I don't know whether Gareth wants to give any details to that.
Sorry, yeah,
We certainly will be.
We will be having an overage clause in the transaction, and it will be for 25 years after the date of sale. And it will allow the council to share in 50% of the uplifting value of the land should the purchaser obtain planning permission for it, for change of use in agriculture.
Thank you. So.
Yeah, just and in principle, I didn't have any issues as I was reading the report through, but just on the options appraisal, for me personally, I'd like to maybe have seen a little bit more detail on there to enable me to come to the conclusion that I have. As I said, it seems straightforward, and Phil certainly thinks that's the case. But in terms of there being no development potential, etc., are you able to enlighten a bit more around why you've come to this option that you have in terms of the recommendation?
Yes, we've come to the conclusion, or the recommendation that we have done is because due to the location of the land based outside the development boundary, it being in an area of outstanding natural beauty, and the building on the land not being of any particular significance in terms of a residential conversion, we felt the best opportunity was to dispose of the land on the open market instead, and it doesn't have any current or near future land option.
If I would mind just coming back, and it's not on that point actually, but thank you for that. I think, I'd welcome any thoughts from the local member as well. I know the local member's being consulted, but I don't know if we can allow the local member in if she's got any comments to make at the end, if that's okay.
Actually, Debbie is the local member. Do you want to make any comments?
Yeah, I mean, Gareth was really candid in letting me know that he thought he'd consulted and he hadn't. However, we've spent a long time this morning looking at it. Whilst, in principle, it's difficult to sell off what is seen as public land, I think with this I can understand it, because the farm still has another 75 acres connected to the farm, with a further 12, I think, further down the road. It will always be agricultural land, so it will stay that way. It will just be managed privately, I guess, and then the money goes towards the capital research. So that's fine. Once I've got the detail, I was less nervous about the decision.
And it is in line with with that policy, where we've got non-core holdings and they're no longer required by their tenants. We will look to get capital receipts from them. The rent isn't sufficient to want to hold on to it. The capital receipt is certainly worth having, given the amount that we need to raise to support the 21st Century School programme. So, it's considered that land within that category should be disposed of.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
Me, okay. Thank you, Chair. I note that planning is not on the list of consultees, and I wondered if, in fact, there had been any consultation with planning.
Yes, as I said in my report, there is no development potential, so,
No.
so yes, planning was consulted.
Consulted.
Could I just ask Gareth, the uplift clause, which is clearly different from the one that we had a few years ago, then it was just restricted to 10 years, and I'm pleased to hear that it's now 25 years. But I think then it was a sliding scale. In other words, if you sold in the first year, the council would have 90% of the uplift and then 80%, etc., going down. Did I hear you right that from year one, the council would receive 50%?
Yes. And that transfers to, if the purchaser from us then sells it on, that clause moves through the transactions as well. So for the next 25 years, regardless of whether the purchaser sells it on, then that clause will still stand in place through the contract.
So if we sold a piece of land, the value of that land to, let's say we sold it to a tenant, the value of that land with a, let's say, a barn on it, could be enhanced in 12 months if they sold that within 12 months, because only 50% of the added value would come back to the council.
The overage will only take effect if they change the use of the land in that 12-month period. If they just sell it on as agricultural land in 12 months' time and they benefit from the increasing value, we unfortunately don't get a share of that.
No, I understand that, but let us say, we have farms where there are barns which are in use as barns at the moment, so that if a tenant was to say, well, here, I'll take this tenancy over, within the next year I can get 50% of the uplift in value on a barn that's going, which we know about is valuable. I'll just query that, whether that's a sensible way forward, and whether we could actually look at that clause again to consider whether that is just for the council.
Well, there is a bit of a broken down barn on it, but it isn't good enough to own, and it being outside the development boundary, it would constitute a new dwelling in the countryside, which would be out of policy. So given the present policy, I can't see it being an update.
I'm talking more of the principle of it in future rather than necessarily of this one here. Perhaps we could have a look at that uplift clause and see whether the council is getting a fair deal for the public when they sell on those terms.
Happy to have a look at that by all means.
All right. So the recommendations, I won't go through them again. Phil has outlined them quite correctly. So are we happy to accept the recommendation? And we move on to the next one, which is the restructuring of attractions. So this actually comes under my portfolio, and it concerns particularly the management arrangements at the youth services, Caldecott Castle, Chepstow, Chepstow Tourist Information Centre, the Shire Hall, and Tintern Old Station. I think this is not a something which is going to generate savings, but it is designed to give better management to these different areas of our enterprise directorate. And I think it's absolutely right that we should consider this now. Are there, who's in here? Anybody covering this? Officers? No, no mind. It is fairly straightforward, and I thoroughly approve of this. The details are as shown.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Oh, talk of the devil. Come and sit down, or sit wherever you can. So we've just been joined by Ian Saunders here, who is overall in charge of this. So either Ian or Richard, do you want to make any comments before we go into the discussion of this?
No, I don't think so, Mr. Paul.
All right, okay. The recommendations are as they appear in paragraph 2. But before we go any further, any comments from members on the report? No?
No, quite straightforward.
Straightforward? Nobody? Okay, I'll read the recommendations to approve the changes to the staffing structure as outlined in the body of the report, as shown in Appendix 1, and to approve that any redundancy and early pension costs will be met by the corporate redundancy budget. All in favour? Okay. And we move on. Thank you for that. The next item is for care leavers council tax exemption.
Yes, thank you. And this report seeks approval to exempt all care leavers up to the age of 25 from paying council tax. This is something which we mentioned in council last time, and I said then that this would be coming forward to Cabinet today, so here it is. And the recommendation, as you can see, is to award 100% discretionary council tax relief to all care leavers aged between 18 to 25 who are residing in the county. And paragraph 442 sets out the details of that relief scheme. In the meantime, the council has responsibility as a corporate parent to support young people in its care. And in agreeing the corporate parenting strategy on the 6th of June, Cabinet agreed to ensure that young people in our care have the opportunity to live a safe, happy and fulfilling life. And this is a movement that we're making towards assisting with that. So the principles of the proposed relief are to be applied in that the claimant, as long as that claimant is a care leaver, aged between 18 and 25 and is not fully exempt from paying council tax on any other basis, we will look at any application from them. There are other points which are set out, but the principal one is the council will have the discretion to backdate any future awards to the 1st of April 2018. It goes without saying that once a care leaver turns 26, the full council tax is due. So as I said earlier, between 18 and 25, this policy will apply. It will be administered by the revenues team in conjunction with the children's services team. Where the care leaver is from another authority who has acted as a corporate parent, as long as we get written confirmation prior to awarding any relief, that will be given. Processes will need to be adopted to allow this relief to be applied to the appropriate accounts when it becomes due, but that is an ongoing management thing. So that is the proposal that we give that 100% discretion relief under those circumstances.
Yes, and I don't think there would be much doubt that everybody would support this. For those who are leaving care and our care, they face a disadvantage to others who have had a family upbringing, and anything that we can do to try and help them in those first few years when they are reaching out on their own, I think we should do. So I'm really supportive of this. Any comments, Penny?
Yeah, so I certainly echo your remarks, Deputy Chair. I welcome this on behalf of all Monmouthshire care leavers, and it's something that now puts us in line with other local authorities, and it is overdue. So I'm really pleased that we're doing this, and it's obviously the way to go forward, because all looked after children come under the auspices of corporate parenting until the age of 25. So it's a good job. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, it's good.
Well, I was going to say it's the right thing to do, and in cash terms, it's really quite modest so far as the cost to the authorities concerned.
Yeah.
just echo, really pleased to see this. It's the right thing to do. Very happy with doing it.
Good. Everybody okay? Right, the recommendations to award 100% discretionary council tax relief to all care leavers between the ages of 18 and 25 who are residing in the county, and to adopt the proposed relief scheme noted in 4.2 below, which we... Okay, all in favour? Thank you. And we move on then to the next item, which is primary school meal debt recovery policy and procedure. Councillor Brian Jones.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. This report is, as everyone has received it, other than the recommendations at 2, where there are some additions, not changes so much as additions. So I'm going to read them all out because I think I'm the only one with a copy. So, yeah. And under item 2 recommendations, 2.1, the debt associated with the provision to primary sector children of school meals and before school clubs be managed using the following policy and procedure. 1, that no action be taken to recover debt until the value of the debt has exceeded £10. Item 2, that the person responsible for paying for the service, likely the parent or guardian, receive written notice of the debt on 3 occasions over a period of 3 weeks from the school. Item 3, in the event of the debt remaining outstanding, that the person responsible for paying for the service be invited to a meeting with the school to discuss why the debt exists. Item 4, schools to provide evidence of debt being chased and all actions taken to collect the debt, including letters to parents and welfare meetings. Item 5, any payment plans must be agreed with the local authority, and any deviation from this payment plan may result in the service being withdrawn if agreed with the Chief Officer for Education and Head of Operations. Item 6, once debt is escalated to the local authority, evidence of trying to recover that debt must be provided by the school. And if the evidence is robust and the local authority is substantially unable to recover the cost of the debt, the cost of this will be picked up by the local authority. Item 7, if schools cannot provide that evidence or it is not robust, any subsequent write-off will be a cost of the school budget. Item 8, a review of the procedure and level of debt is brought to Cabinet in 6 months' time, and that's the additional bit in the middle. All the rest of the report is exactly as is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Nikki Wellington, does this replace an existing policy, or is this a new policy that?
There is a policy in place, but it needs updating, so yes.
Okay, all right, thanks. Any comments, members? Yes, Richard.
I appreciate it's a very difficult area. Of course, we have a responsibility to ensure that every child and young person in our schools has a healthy and nutritious meal at lunchtime. Of course, we want to ensure that that's the case. But at the same time, we're talking about a debt of £8,000. That's a class in a school in Monmouthshire that could have brand new iPads. You know, every penny counts, and if we're not if we're not recovering as much debt as we can and putting the money back into the system, then that's going to negatively impact on our young people. So I think this is a sensible way forward. I think it's important that we review it as we go forward. And we did say some months ago when we proposed the charge for the before school clubs that we would review that scheme more widely. We can then see how it's progressing, and I think that's a sensible way forward.
Sorry? Not normally, but go on.
I mean, looking at the process, I think it is a very sensitive process, and it's a good way of managing the debt. Obviously, alarm bells go off when I hear service withdrawn, particularly if that service withdrawn is removing basically food from mouths of children, and we've got to be careful that doesn't happen. I'm also interested in long term, because sometimes that debt is a trigger for us to know that perhaps is an issue in the family and they need support. So from that, I'd like to know what support is then offered to the family to deal with this, because as I say, sometimes it's just a bit of a trigger. So those are my concerns on this, really.
Okay, in terms of what the service was doing, obviously that would be the very, very last resort. So that would be after we know that the family has the ability to pay and they are just not paying. So that's why I've escalated it up to the head of service for that area. It's highly unlikely, but there may be circumstances that we need to have something in the policy that allows us to do that. In terms of the policy and in terms of family circumstances, our schools are best placed to know those family circumstances, which is why throughout the whole policy our schools need to be involved. They will know if something's happened in the family and we need to give them a little bit of leeway to be able to pay everything. Our schools, as you're aware, our schools help all our families with free school meals. They will sit and fill in applications with them. They will help them through that process. You will know that Cabinet's approved that we're handing out to the shared benefit service, and that they will be targeting those families where we know who are entitled to free school meals and not claiming. So that also helps the process. So I think, giving credit to our schools, they are doing everything that they can, but there will still be one or two families that through whatever means we need to be able to capture and cut them down. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? No? Right, I won't go through the full recommendations which Brian has just read out, but simply this is to approve the primary school meal debt recovery policy. All in favour? Thank you. And we therefore move on to consultation paper for inclusion review. Richard.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Well, you may recall that at our Cabinet meeting on the 7th of March, we launched a consultation on the future structure of our provision for young children and young people with additional learning needs. Now, that consultation set out 4 options, and we proposed a preferred option of provision, which include proposals to develop a new special school in the south of the county to deliver a full range of provision to meet the needs of children and young people within Monmouthshire. Now, that consultation opened on the 16th of April and closed at the end of May. And as part of that, we had a series of consultation meetings with staff, with parents, with school governors. And we've had a wide range of contributions to that, with a number of positive points being raised about early intervention, about greater opportunities for children and young people to have their needs met within the county, and also about the equity in the system, about having a single management structure. But there were also some concerns, and it's important that we take the time to address those properly. So there were some worries raised about the management arrangements, about the travel distances that children and young people might continue to face within Monmouthshire. We recognise we're obviously a very large rural county. And also about how we meet the needs of children with moderate learning difficulties, and how we ensure that those are met. So those are some of the concerns that have been raised, and we feel it's really important that we take the time to consider those properly. So this report recommends a slight change to the timetable we agreed in March, which is that Cabinet take a final decision on the future way forward on the 5th of December at our Cabinet meeting, instead of November as was originally proposed. And hopefully it will offer some reassurance to parents, to staff, to everyone involved in the provision of additional learning needs for young people in the county, that we want to get this provision right. These structures need to be right. It's important that we take the time We listened to those full range of contributions, and I think this is demonstrating really how beneficial the consultation process is. And we were quite candid at the start. We wanted to hear people's contributions, even if they were worries or concerns, or especially even. And I feel it's really important now that we take the time to consider those, and we make sure that the proposals we put forward and that we agree at our meeting in December are robust and will be fit for the future.
But, yeah. Any, Will, you're the author of this. Do you want to make any?
No, I think Councillor John summed it up really well.
Right.
If there are questions, and I'll answer those.
Okay. Any questions from members? No. No.
Way forward.
Sorry.
That's a good way forward.
Oh, right. Okay. So we move to the recommendation. There's only one recommendation to approve the amended timeline associated with this statutory consultation process, which proposes that Cabinet take their final decision on the 5th of December rather than the 7th of November as originally proposed. All in favour? Okay, thank you. Then we move on to a great start for all draft Monmouthshire not in education, employment or training reduction strategy. Richard.
Thank you. So a key plank of our corporate plan was that we ensure that every child has the very best start in life. And this report is a key plank of that. We know that in Monmouthshire, the figures last year for school leavers who went on to not be in education, employment or training was 1.4%. That's a fall from 2.8% in 2003, and 1.4% remains below the Welsh average. That's positive, but 1.4% is still too high. That's too many young people who are not going on to the benefits, the rewards that you can get from being on a path towards a career, and we need to put that right. So this strategy is replacing our previous NEET reduction strategy, which was from 2015 to 2018, and it sets out a number of proposals aimed at reducing the number of children who are NEET, or young people who are NEET, and sets out strategies to intervene at a much earlier age. We know that there are a number of signs of children who may go on to not be in training, education or employment. A young person who is NEET may be more likely to have had low school attendance, low levels of attainment. They may have had a number of exclusions on their school record. They may be more likely to have some additional learning needs. They may be more likely to be from a deprived background. They may speak English as an additional language. They may have suffered from low self-esteem. They may have had a number of adverse childhood experiences in the past. So this strategy proposes intervention at a much earlier age. So it proposes some interventions in primary school and in Key Stage 2, and also in Key Stages 3 and 4. Because if we can identify those children at a much earlier age, we can enrol them on a support plan, we can get that support that they need in place, and we can help them get on the path towards a rewarding career. Because we know that if we're serious about social justice, if we're serious about tackling poverty in Monmouthshire, the way to do it is through education and getting young people on a path towards employment. So that's what this strategy proposes to do. There's clearly a key role here for us working with a number of partners, particularly in the school system. And I note that there's a commitment to monitoring progress on this strategy every year through the Children and Young People Committee. So that's the proposal, and the recommendation is that we approve this final draft of this NEET reduction strategy.
Thank you, Richard. There's no doubt, is there, that a good job is fundamental to everyone's well-being as they move forward in life. And even if we have one person who falls into this category of not in education, employment or training, it's one too many for that individual, and we should do everything we can to reduce the numbers coming forward. And so I welcome this coming forward at this stage, and look forward to taking it through further. Anybody, any comments amongst members? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's good to hear that, you know, you've spoken about the corporate plan, but clearly this is a key element of our social justice plan. You mentioned social justice, so you know, it's really good to see it come forward. And I would all praise for this document. I think it's really well set out, and it's really concise and well presented. So particularly around early identification and the early identification tool, I think that's going to be absolutely critical to this piece of work and the development in this area. So really good to see that embedded in this strategy. I think I'd be like to hear a bit more about the comments when it went through. So you've consulted really widely, which is great and really good to hear. But CYP, it's gone to CYP committee, so it'd be good to just understand what their reflection was about this. And I'm sure it's all positive because it really does look like a good document.
Hannah, do you want to go?
Yeah, it was very positive when I went to CYP last week. There's lots of questions looking at challenges in terms of bringing it back and monitoring the targets and outcomes, and particularly around apprentices and what apprenticeship opportunities we would make from the local authority and wider than Monmouthshire. So that was a comment that was actually put in lots of projects and people sent through. So yeah, it was well received and wanting us to go back to sort of monitor the strategy in terms of the outcomes.
Yeah, and I'd welcome that coming back to us, you know, in terms of those outcomes. And I think there's some wider issues here which we as a cabinet, as a council, need to grapple with around. This is a wider agenda around things such as careers, advice and guidance beyond just the NEET sort of agenda itself. But this in itself, personally, I think is a great document and certainly sits well with what our social justice aims and aspirations are. So thank you.
Yes, I'd just like to agree with you. Hannah Jones, who is the author of the report, this is an excellent report. Well done for bringing this on. Any other comments from around the table?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, go on.
I was going to say we clearly know who are going to become NEET, and early intervention is really key to this strategy. Pick them up early and do something with it.
Penny?
Yeah, I just agree. I was just going to pick up on the other issue. I can't remember what it was now at the end. Just there, and the careers advice. That's right. You know, we just, I mean, Sarah mentioned it then, but we're really concerned with it. The careers advice is not good enough for any of our children, let alone those who are NEETs or potential NEETs. So, you know, we need to do something about that. And I don't know how we're going to start, because obviously it's a funding issue as well. But I know that our teachers, hard-pressed teachers, do not want to take up this role, really, and they're not trained to do so. So what are we going to do about it to help ensure that we have no NEETs in the future and that the advice given is relevant?
We had a similar conversation around the table at the Educational Achievement Service board a couple of weeks ago. It is a real issue. Careers advice has fallen way behind what was there a few years ago, and we know, you know, the pressures on budgets, but it most certainly is an issue. Paul Matthews, do you want to come in?
Yeah, it's an issue, Deputy Leader, that's also shared across the other 9 South East Wales councils, and there is a pretty fundamental piece of work being brought forward through the Cardiff Capital Region City deal, which I'll say bang rather than if approved, that we will see potentially a very significant additional investment being made and coming forward to support career development and choices in all schools across South East Wales. We often ask ourselves, what will we see in Monmouthshire from the city deal? I think this is an example of the sort of program that will benefit our young people extremely well, and I'm not sure that we have the capability to necessarily take this agenda forward on our own. So I think there is something coming forward, which I hope this cabinet will find to be an adequate response to the problems that we are seeing. That's over and above everything that Hannah and her team are already doing. So it's supplemental rather than to replace.
Right. Any other comments? No. Right. We're asked to approve the final draft version and adopt the Monmouthshire NEAT reduction strategy. All in favour? Okay, thank you. And that then brings us on to, I think, the final item on the agenda today, which is the Welsh Church Fund Working Group. And this is the report which comes to us for confirming the recommendations which are made by the working group that takes in applications for funding from various bodies from the fund which is administered by the County Council, the Welsh Church Fund. So you have in front of you the various applications, and I will just read through them, or I'll read through the approved ones, and those are trustees of Langeview Church have been granted £350 to contribute to the maintenance of the church for 2 years. Actually, I'm just thinking that I should declare an interest in that, as that is one of the churches, although it's a redundant church, within the Usk Ministry area.
You're not a trustee, deputy leader, are you?
No. Actually, thinking about it, the trustees of the church, it's a redundant church, so it has new trustees, although the church is still within the ministry area.
So your relationship is your, you being in the ministry. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So matter for you, of course, but in those circumstances, I don't think you need to declare a personal interest there. But entirely up to you, Deputy Leader.
No, I think you're probably right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you for that advice. So a grant for £350 to the trustees of Langeview Church. Sorry, I missed a couple. Yeah. St. Peter's Church, Llanwenneth, Citra, £3,000 towards the cost of repairing the bell frame, etc. St. Cadoc's Church, Langattock, Juxta, Usk.
Sorry, Chair, I don't need to, I signed that one. Does that?
No,
that's
fine, Councillor Jones. If it's just signing the application, absolutely no problem with that, no interest at all.
So
sorry, the interest will only be generated if you are actually a member of one of these institutions or bodies.
Yeah, that's fine.
So £1,000 towards St. Cadoc's Church for the repairing of the church eaves due to damage caused by squirrels. And then have been awarded £250 to fund the venue cost of staging the charitable event that they've come up forward. And then Emily Parry Williams has been awarded £500 to promote and provide funds that would benefit a talented individual within the Monmouthshire community. Oliver Barbary awarded £300 to promote and provide funds, the same, provide a talented, would benefit a talented individual. St. Arvan's Church, St. Arvan's, awarded £2,000 towards the cost of replacing inefficient heating at this community facility. And finally, Abergavenny School Group has been deferred for further information. So are members content to approve all of those? And that's the final item on the agenda. Thank you for your attendance, everyone.
Deputy Leader, just before we break, can I just
yeah, sure.
Ask for indulgence for 2 moments. We're fortunate in this council that there are so many good things going on that sometimes we neglect to actually recognise art issue that's just truly outstanding. Some of you will be aware of this, but others perhaps won't. I'm glad Ian invited you to stay. One of our colleagues, Duncan Thompson, from the Luton Chepstow Leisure Centre, saved a life a few days ago, or possibly returned a gentleman to life. One of our clients had a cardiac episode when exercising in Chepstow. Duncan and the team, actually using the sort of equipment that we have in place, were able to care for that gentleman, and he returned up a few days ago to say thank you. I think every now and again it's important to bring these issues to Cabinet's attention. You know, we not only impact on people's lifestyles here, but there are those rare occasions. Nobody that comes into our, I suppose, our offer, be they in schools, be they in our leisure centres, they expect to return home safely. You know, you don't exercise or don't go to school just to learn. It's about more than that. And I want to find a way of recognising Duncan properly, because just the joy of somebody being able to return to their family, I think, is something that we should discuss a lot.
Yeah, thank you for that, and you're absolutely right. I would actually like to be able to report this to full council, because I do think that it goes much more beyond the duty of our officers, and the opportunity to give somebody back their life in this way has been, we couldn't give an award that would reward them enough for that. It is something which is outstanding, and I'm sure that all members of council would want to endorse that at some stage as well. So thanks for that. Anything else before we close? No? End of meeting then. Thank you.
Thank you.